Hey guys, it's Ken here from shop3d.ca. Welcome to another webinar. Today we're talking about the Form 4. This is the most requested machine for us to do a webinar since its launch, so let's get to it.
Hi, I'm Michael. I'm a B2B sales associate here at Shop3D, and I'm here to give you an overview of the Formlabs Form 4. The Form 4 is a stereolithography, or SLA, 3D printer, which means that it uses a liquid photopolymer, aka resin, to print. This resin reacts with light to turn into a liquid, or from a liquid into a solid. Taking a look at the outside of the printer, one of the first things you'll notice is the large touchscreen interface at the bottom here, which features a matte finish to reduce glare and make it easier to see. Quickly going over connectivity, you're able to connect to the Form 4 over Wi-Fi, Ethernet, and USB-C. So really, any way that you want to connect to the Form 4, you can. Lifting the hood to take a better look inside. Two of my favorite features of this printer are its build volume and its speed. The printer is super fast, completing most prints in under 2 hours. Compared to the Form 3, it offers a larger build volume, coming in at about 30% larger. And if you just look at the build platform, you'll see that it's wider than before. And in total, the Form 4 has a build volume of 200 by 125 by 210 millimeters. Next, we can see the inclusion of a webcam here for the first time, which allows for live remote monitoring, as well as taking time lapses of your prints. There's also an ultrasonic sensor located here to measure the level of the resin in the resin tank. The resin tank itself is also brand new for the Form 4. Compared to the Form 3, this tank is cheaper and lasts even longer. Also, unlike the Form 3's tank, this one will last for the same number of prints regardless of what type of resin, whether it's abrasives or what have you, that you're using. You'll also notice that the mixer, the black part there, is back from the Form 2, although new and much improved this time. It's easier to remove and will also detect if it hits something during a print, such as if your print failed. If this happens, the printer will pause and let you know. One of the main ways that the printer is able to print so fast is thanks to the LPU4 in the base of the printer here. Unlike Formlabs' earlier printers, which moved a laser around to cure the resin, the LPU4 cures the resin using MSLA, or masked SLA. MSLA uses an LCD screen to selectively block light emanating from a powerful LED array, only exposing the resin where we want it to harden. This means that there are no moving parts and that an entire layer is exposed at the same time and quickly cured. The LCD screen used also has a very high resolution pixel density with a pixel size of 50 microns, giving you extremely fine details. In addition, the microtexture surface that Formlab applied to the top of the LPU allow the low-force film of the resin tank to peel very quickly. It's a combination of this and the use of MSLA that gives us those really, really fast print speeds. The resin cartridge, which you can see here, is also new for the Form 4. It features a new form factor, which is more bottle-like compared to the kind of book-shaped old cartridges. This makes them easier to store, handle, and carry, while also using less plastic than before, so it's even more eco-friendly. A very nice benefit of the new design, especially when filling a tank with resin, is that the bottle drains much, much more quickly now, about 10 times faster than before, thanks to new valve designs. You can also see what resin is loaded into the printer through the window in the back, right here. And also with the new RFID chip in each cartridge, which the printer will read automatically. You might also have noticed that the resin here is a new formulation. This is their gray V5. It's actually much closer to the old Gray Pro in terms of performance. Compared to the standard Gray V4 resin that we previously had, the V5 is stronger, produces finer details, and just overall has better mechanical properties. And it even comes in at a cheaper price. Some final details of note. First, the airflow. At the bottom of the printer is a large fan and some air intakes to cool the LPU. Because of this, you probably don't want to put the printer on a carpet or somewhere that restricts airflow. There's also a port in the back here to connect a hose if you're worried about fumes or air quality, so that you can easily connect it up and vent or filter the air. Lastly, in the back, we have a nice toolkit that includes Allen keys and some shims in case you need to replace the LPU and relevel it. I hope you guys learned a lot about the Form 4. If you have any questions, you can email me at michael@shop3d.ca. Next, we'll go to Colin, who has a practical demo for us.
Hi guys, my name's Colin. I'm with Shop3D. I work in the technical department. Today we're doing a live demonstration of Formlabs' new printer, the Form 4. So on my screen right now, I have this sample part here. It's a screw measuring gauge. It has a number of different features, including a measuring tool for measuring the lengths of screws. It's also got some slots here for measuring the size of the heads. And overall, it's just a great print because there's a lot of fine features on it and there's a lot of details. We printed this on the Form 4 directly on the build plate. It's not ideal, but we were printing it for testing purposes just to see how fast we could print it. So when we printed on the Form 4, I think it took about 40 minutes overall to print to completion versus if we had printed it on the previous generation, the Form 3, the expected print time was about 2.5 hours. So that is a very significant increase in speed in terms of printing. So on my screen here, I've got the model laid out in preform. I have it directly laid out on the build plate. Now this is not the most optimal method of printing. Ideally, because this has got a large flat surface, you would want to pitch this model on an angle. Ideally, you would want to do at least 20 degrees, but in this case, because it's such a large and flat feature, I'm going to pitch it to a 45-degree angle. The reason being is large flat surfaces create a lot of suction when printing, and so you want to pitch them to minimize the amount of flat surfaces printed per layer. So I've oriented it now in a 45-degree angle, and I am then just going to quickly examine the model from all the different sides and make sure everything looks good before I turn on the supports. So I am then going to go to the support tab and I'm going to generate the supports. Typically I let Preform just do the auto generation. It's pretty good with generating the supports. It does take a minute to generate, but it is much faster now compared to the Form 3 in terms of just generating the supports. So I'm just going to do one more quick look over, just make sure everything looks good before I send the print over to the Form 4. So everything here looks good. I don't see any really issues. Over here you can see there's nothing being flagged, there's no cupping, there's no unsupported areas, so everything looks good. I am then going to upload to our printer. I'm going to add it to the queue. The reason why I add it to the queue and not print directly is because I like to do some pre-printing checks. So I like to just make sure the printer is ready to go before I just send it and start it. I don't like to just start the print right off the bat. So I'm uploading the print now. I've also laid out some tools and some supplies I would normally use for doing these pre-print checks. So I've got some nitrite gloves, some pec pads that I've kept in a bag just to keep them clean, and I have some isopropyl alcohol here in a bottle, and then I do have a scraper tool that's predominantly used post-print. You don't really need it pre-print. So I'm going to put the gloves on. You always want to have gloves on when you're handling anything related to the printer. You don't want your natural skin oils like grease or dirt getting on anywhere in the printer, especially on the tank. So I'm going to come around now. I'm going to lift the lid up. Whenever you're not printing, you want to keep the lid closed at all times just to help preserve the life of the resin. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to unlock the build plate. I'm going to visually inspect it for any cured resin or any residue from the resin. Just make sure overall it's clean, which in this case it is. I'm going to push the build platform back in. I'm going to wait for that click, and then I'm going to mechanically lock it with the lever. The next thing I want to do is I want to unlock the mixer, and I just want to have a brief glance at that, make sure there's no trapped debris in it, which in this case there appears to be nothing obvious. I'm going to then lock it back into place. or in this case, actually no, because I need to take the tank out first. So next I'm going to take the tank out and just visually inspect that, which in this case it doesn't appear like there's anything really of concern. I'm just moving the wiper back a bit just to check there's nothing that, any glaring issues. The last thing you want to check is the textured plate here, the release textured plate, sorry, and I don't see really any fingerprints or dust or debris, so I think we're good to go at this point. So I'm going to put the tank back in. I'm going to lock it from both sides. In this case, it's not locked in. And then you hear that audible click. So the tank is now locked in, and then I'm going to go ahead and lock the mixer, which is locked. And then on screen, it's asking you to verify that the tank as well as the mixer is locked, which in this case they are. So I'm going to hit yes to both. I'm then going to close the lid. The last thing you want to do is just check that the resin tank is inserted correctly, which it is. You'll hear a click. Also, you want to make sure that the valve is open. Or sorry, not the valve, the cap. And then at that point, we're ready to go. So I'm going to go to the Q menu, and I'm going to find my print, and I am going to hit start. And the printer is on its way. And that pretty much concludes the demonstration. So thank you for joining me. Up next, we're going to have my colleague Cha talk about a use case for the Form 4.
Hey guys, my name is Cha. I work in the technical service department of Shop 3D at Mississauga. Today I'm going to talk about a recent project I worked on with a customer of ours by using the Form 4 technology. I've previously done this project before on the Formlabs Form 3 printer, and we've seen great results. Formlabs has always offered a ease of use and good surface quality, but specifically to this project, I saw a significant improvement, and I thought it was an interesting case to talk to you guys about it. For a while now, we printed sort of proof of concept molds for customers, and these are basically molds that are going to be used, a couple dozen times. They just want to see what the final form is, and they don't want to go through the expensive costs of machining it out of steel or aluminum. And so we'll create a plastic mold for them, and they'll, based on this mold, what they'll do is they'll do a thermal forming and get their test piece or sample piece. And that's the goal here. And so previously, what this meant was we did it on the Form 3. And the way I would print the tool on the Form 3 is I would orient it in this direction. So this print on the Form 3 would take about 25 to 26 hours. And with relatively good results. So for thermal forming, a significant part of this is the pressure relief holes around the part. These pressure relief holes are designed at 0.5 millimeter diameter. The significance of these pressure relief holes is that in feature areas where you want to get the design, capture the design onto the mating surface, these pressure relief holes make sure that you can capture those details accurately. Okay. So printing it on the Form 4, I was able to sort of reduce the height of the actual print for this tool, and our orientation is like this. And this is largely because of the newly designed build plate, right? And so with this orientation, I was able to print this mold in about 5 hours.
under 5 hours. So that is a significant reduction in time. That is almost 5 times the amount of time it takes to print it on the Form 3. The other major consideration and improvement that Formlabs has made in relation to this project was that this part used to cost somewhere around $50 worth of materials, because in order for the part to be printed in this orientation, there's a bundle of supports that would be constructed back here in terms of wasted material. And on the Form 4, because of this orientation, we significantly reduce the amount of support material that's needed, and this again has significantly reduced the cost of the final part. The final result are comparable, I would say. The surface quality of these resin prints are excellent for this use case. These molds are not going to be sort of like production level molds where you're doing thousands of punches. I would say these molds will handle up to about a few dozen, maybe a few dozen, and they will start to deteriorate or become damaged. But you know, for the cost of per mold, a lot of companies now are looking to use this and adding it into their repertoire for prototyping. In relation to this project, I think the Form 4 has significantly improved our workflow in providing the service to our customers. It has cut our time of production down. It is 1/5 the amount of time to produce this part as it did on the Form 3. And it has significantly reduced the cost per part by half. So initially, this part cost $50 worth of material cost. Now it's about $23 of material cost per part. And there are 2 reasons why the cost of the part has significantly reduced. One being that the actual resin cost itself has been reduced. And the second part is because I no longer have to print the part as tall as I had to on this build plate, the amount of support material is significantly reduced. And so waste material is significantly reduced, and I'll still be able to get the same part, same quality, and I'm very happy about that. So, you know, to me, I think the Form 4 offers any business that are looking to prototype a significant cost benefit in terms of their workflow. So, to conclude, 2 of the major points of interest that I gathered is 1, the significant reduction in time of producing the part. It's a fifth of the amount of time it used to take. And the second part is the cost of material per part. So originally it was about $50. Now it is about $24. This is half the amount of price for the material cost. And the part itself is actually slightly more robust due to the new formulation of the standard resins. And this has significant impact on our workflow when we can make a turnover relatively quickly. And I'm just really happy that I get to use the Form 4 for some of these projects. So next, Ken and Michael will walk you guys through some best practices while printing with the Form 4.
All right, now it's time to talk about some best practices for using your Form 4. Now our techs have been testing it and trying it out, and they've been loving it. And they put together a pretty interesting list of best practices. Let's go.
Yep. All right, so Ken, first off, before I start a print, what kind of things do I need to check?
Okay, well, there's a pre-flight checklist for your Form 4, and actually on the screen it's going to tell you what's not good, and I'll highlight that in red. So if you forget your build plate or your resin tank, it's going to give you a warning. But essentially what you want to do is you want to check that you have your cartridge inserted, open the valve, you're going to have your resin tank in there to dispense into. Your build plate should be clear and ready for the next print. And that's pretty much it in terms of getting ready for your first print.
All right. And during the print, is there any things I should be aware of, keep track of?
Yeah, during the print, it's pretty much hands-free. I mean, that's the best thing about 3D printers. It's going to work when you're not working. There is a camera built in, so you could log in and see the progress of your print. Now, what you want to look for, and it's pretty rare, is if you have any failures. So if you slice something and there's too much suction force and something gets stuck onto the build plate, you want to make sure that your print is printing. If nothing appears on the build platform when it's this high, you know something has failed. But otherwise, there's also a feature on the mixer for the Form 4 where if it hits something, it's going to pause the print for you and tell you that there's an error. So, but essentially, if everything is going to plan and you see your print is printing, just let it do its thing.
All right. And what about after the print is done on the Form 4?
Yeah, so there's a little bit of post-processing. It's going to depend on what resin you're using. If you're using standard resin, there isn't really a post-curing process. But if you're using Tough 2000, for example, you'll want to take your build plate out, wash it, cure it, and then your print will be ready. In terms of having, what your printer to do for reset, all you have to do is clear the build plate before you can kind of print again. If you're using the same resin, there's nothing else to change up.
All right. And what about when we're done with the printer for, let's say, and still have resin left in the tank? What do we need to do to store that?
Yeah, so if let's say you're only using V5 gray for the whole time, you could just leave it in the printer because the orange cover is going to block UV light from coming in and curing your resin. So that's not going to be a problem at all. But let's say you want to switch it out for something else, moving on to a different print, a different resin, then you'll want to take your resin tank out, put it in the container that comes with your resin tank because that has a UV blocking material as well, and you can just store that in a cool, dry place, and have it sit there, and bring it out when you use your next cartridge again. Now, it's important to note that you probably don't want to keep resin in those resin tanks forever. It is a film on the bottom of it, so you want to be cognizant that you're either using that resin regularly, or if you're not going to use it for a very long time, take the resin out and pour it back into the bottle for storage purposes.
All right. And what kind of things do we want to have on hand when dealing with resin and handling and such?
Yeah, here at Shop 3D, safety is the key. We have a lot of people around, so you want to make sure that you have nitrile gloves on hand. You don't really need a mask, but you want to have some isopropyl alcohol also, and some pec pads, so that you can use those materials and kind of clean off any spills you might have on the table. And the nitrile gloves just keeps your hand free and clear so that you're not touching resin accidentally and then touching all other surfaces and contaminating everything.
Is there anything else that I should know about handling and dealing with the Form 4?
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot more guides and support articles available on the Formlabs website. So if you go to support.formlabs.com, you'll see a ton of articles that are available for you to handle resin, dispose of resin, working with your printer, troubleshooting. All those articles are available on the Formlabs website. So I encourage you to go visit that website if you need to, or if you just have a quick question, they can also just email or give you a call, right?
Yep. Michael at shop3d.ca.
Perfect. So by now I think you've learned a lot about the Form 4 and what it can do for you. If you already have a Form 2, Form 3, or Form 3 Plus, you can actually upgrade to the Form 4 and get an exclusive discount. You can get $1,325 off of consumables for your Form 4 if you're upgrading from those systems. And this can be applied to consumables, build platforms, form cures, and form washes, all for your Form 4. It'll be very useful because they have a different cartridge for your Form 4 and you'll need new consumables for it. The best thing about this is it's very easy to apply. All you have to do is let us know your serial that you're upgrading from. You don't actually have to send us your printer. You can keep using that and we'll be able to apply this discount for you. So make sure you reach out and contact our sales team for this upgrade discount. Now that we're back, we've gathered the best FAQs from all over, people asking us about most common questions about the Form 4, and I'm going to present some of you here. Actually, I'm going to start with asking you some questions, Michael, and then maybe you can ask me some afterward. But let's start with the most common question, which is, can we use other cartridges like old Form 3 cartridges in the Form 4?
So no, unfortunately not. You can see that the new cartridge is a different form factor, so it won't. So the old Form 3 cartridges will not fit on the Form 4. the Form 4 is also calibrated specifically to use these new resins, and using the old resins from your Form 3 could damage the print or lead to failed prints, which we really don't want.
Yeah, so make sure you have the brand new resins for the Form 4 specifically.
Okay. Can I use my Form 3 build platform or tanks with the Form 4?
Yeah, similar question. Although the build platform looks very similar, it's actually not the same. This is a slightly bigger build platform, and you should definitely use the Form 4 build platform with the Form 4. Unfortunately, not all the accessories are backwards compatible, but it's for good reason because this printer prints at a much faster speed, so there's a lot of optimizations for the new upgrades. In terms of that mixer arm, now we've seen that mixer arm on the Form 2 as well. How is it different, and do you need, to buy multiple mixer arms for different resins?
Yeah, so for the mixer arm, it's recommended, but not required, to have a separate one for each tank. If you want to transfer it from one tank to another, you do need to clean it for at least 5 minutes in IPA, preferably with the Form wash. Transferring mixers between opaque and transparent resins can also cause issues, causing color contamination or clouding and such. What kind of maintenance does the printer require, Ken? And how often should these tasks be performed?
Sure, yeah. The Form 4 is new, so there's a slightly different maintenance schedule, but all in all, SLA printers are fairly maintenance-free. What you want to do is make sure that you have a good, consistent practice between prints. So that means checking and making sure that your resin tank is okay. It's not damaged. There's no scratches on it. It's not leaking. You want to make sure there's nothing left on your build platform because as it comes down, it could puncture your resin tank. So essentially, you just want to make sure that everything is done and put in the right place after your last print before you start your new print. So make sure that your resin is not clumped up or anything weird from it. You want to give your resins a shake before inserting it just to kind of mix up the resin. But overall, it's those little maintenance things just between prints that's required. There is a maintenance schedule for the Form 4, and you can access that on the Formlabs support website. Now, in the Form 3, Michael, we had the Form Auto, which was a system that you could buy separately. It was optional, and that system let you kind of automated dispensing of the print once it's done, and that's called the Form Auto. Do we have that for the Form 4?
No, unfortunately, we don't at this time. The Form Auto is not compatible with the Form 4, and as far as and we're not aware if Formlabs has any plans to make a new version or to release something to make it compatible at this time.
Yeah, and it's important to note that the Form 3 Auto was really meant to speed up and improve workflow, whereas the Form 4 prints so fast, it's actually probably going to double or triple the workflow speed anyway. So I think that's probably a better upgrade than having the automated system.
And what is the lifespan of the tanks for the Form 4? I mentioned earlier that they are longer lasting, but about how long exactly?
Yeah, so now the Form 4 tanks are a little bit different than the Form 3 where it's resin specific. It's no longer resin specific, so whether you're using Gray V5 or whether you're using rigid 10K or high temp, which used to be very hard on the resin tank, now it's pretty much consistent throughout the life of the tank for whatever resin you put in it. And it's going to be around 75,000 layers of printing per resin tank, so they will eventually wear out, but it's a lot longer lasting than the previous tank, and being not resin specific is a big bonus. I want to ask you, people are always talking about how this is a bigger printer than before. How much bigger is this exactly?
So the Form 3 was about 14.5 by 14.5 by 19.3 centimeters in each dimension, whereas the Form 4 is 20 by 12.5 by 21 centimeters. So you're looking at about a 30% overall increase in terms of volume.
That's pretty ideal.
Yeah.
And I think I probably want to ask you this again also, but talk about the Form Wash. I know there's a new Form Wash that's a version 2. What exactly is new on the Form Wash?
So we need the new Form Wash because it does have that bigger build plate. So with the V2, it's bigger so it can handle that. And it still is compatible with the build plate from the Form 3. In addition, the original Form Wash can be used with the Form 4. You just need to take the prints off the plate first and put them in the tank.
Yeah.
So Ken, I mentioned earlier that the Form 4 is much faster. How much faster is it than the Form 3?
Yeah, so from our testing and from what Formlabs has told us in their spec sheet, we're seeing a 2 to 4 times increase in speed. So we're seeing from 31 millimeters per second to 100 millimeters per second. So that increases the speed dramatically per layer for the Form 4. So yeah, I think the average that we've seen is around 3 times faster, especially using the new resins such as the V5 Gray or V5 Black and Clear. That's showing some of the best improvements. There is a new draft resin coming that will be even faster than the previous draft resin, so we can see even more enhancements down the line. So I've talked about why the Form 4 is faster, how much faster, but can you tell me exactly why it is faster?
Yep, so the Form 4 uses their low force display to cure the entire layer of resin at once using a high screen image, kind of like a stencil. Like I mentioned before, that's the MSLA. The Form 3 and the previous Form 3D printers would use a laser that meticulously kind of traces out the pattern, which takes much longer, whereas the Form 4, it's that whole layer all at once.
Yeah, and there's no moving parts in the Form 4, so that's a little bit different than the Form 3, where the LPU used to move left and right in the printer. So that would kind of speed things up because we no longer have those moving parts.
Yeah. Do we need any additional consumables? Like we mentioned the gloves and stuff earlier. Is there anything more that we need for the Form 4 compared to the Form 3?
Yeah, actually, you're going to get gloves with your finishing kit for the Form 4. You're going to get a whole bunch of tools available in your finishing kit for the Form 4. So you're pretty much set to go. You will need some additional consumables such as IPA or TPM. So you can choose between IPA and TPM. IPA is just isopropyl alcohol. We recommend 95% or above in terms of concentration, and that's going to clean your prints really well. Eventually, you will have to refresh that in your form wash as it becomes saturated with resin. Now, TPN is something that you can use as another solvent if, for example, your facility has a requirement for non-flammable materials. IPA is flammable, so if you want something that's non-flammable, then TPM is an alternative that you can get for a solvent for your Form 4. Both of these are available at shop3d.ca locally. We cannot ship IPA, so you'd have to pick this up locally. But other than that, things that might be useful for you, you can have some PEG pads. We use PEG pads, which are lint-free. That will help you clean your printer. Make sure that you don't have lint on it. If you want to clean parts of the optical surface, make sure you're using a PEG pad so it doesn't scratch it. And other simple things like a little flashlight, LED flashlight might help in order to just look to see if there's any spills of resins and things like that. So it's pretty basic moving forward. Now, if someone wants to have a look and see the printer in person, where should they go?
Yep. So if they're in Canada, they can come to us at shop3d.ca. We've got locations and showrooms in Vancouver and Mississauga. And we can really help you out with anything you might need, whether it's a quote or you just want to come and see how it works and stuff like that. Contact us at any time at shop3d.ca. And what about the warranty, Ken? If they buy the printer and anything should go wrong, who should they contact, and what are we looking at in terms of the duration of the warranty?
For sure. This is a common question that we get. Warranty is, of course, very important with professional machines of this type. So when you buy the Form 4, if you get the basic level starter kit or complete kit, it's going to come with a 1-year warranty. And that's a Formlabs warranty, so it covers defects and manufacturing. If you want to extend this warranty, you can get extended warranties up to 2 and 3 years, and that's available as an option. You don't have to do it. I would recommend getting a 2-year warranty. It's a pretty good value for the peace of mind that you get for the printer. And additionally, you can get also a pro service plan as well. Now, this is not exactly the same as an extended warranty. This is a service plan where you have direct access to the Formlabs engineering team. So you can have a number where you can call with your pro service plan and ask them much more detailed questions about the printer. This is very good if you're new to SLA printing or if you're new to Formlabs, where you need that constant touch point with the manufacturer directly, and that's available with the pro service plan. And that's also available in 1, 2, and 3 year increments. So I think that about sums it up for some of the FAQs for the Form 4. Now, if you have any additional questions that we haven't answered, you can always contact us directly, and we'll get those questions answered for you. Well, that about sums it up for us. I hope you've learned everything you needed to learn about the Form 4, but if you have an application that's more specific, feel free to contact our sales team directly so we can go through a deep dive with your application alone. Again, the Form 4 is already available and in stock at shop3d.ca in both locations in Mississauga and Vancouver, so you can get it with no lead time. Thanks for joining us.